Hi, I'm Brittany Locke, and I'm your host for Be Limitless. Here today in the studio, we have our very own Sierra Sandison, and she is here to talk to us about some of the incredible things that she's been doing lately, and also a little bit about how she's managing to balance all of that into her life. But before we get to that, Sierra, thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
It's a pleasure to have you. I mean, I don't even understand how you have time. You've been on Dr. Oz. You've been Miss America and were voted, or I'm sorry, Miss Idaho, and were voted People's Choice at Miss America. You own your own business. You have written a book, and you travel the country as a spokesperson for type 1 diabetes. I mean, what are you doing here? You're so busy. Shouldn't you have taken over the world by now?
Well, I finally have time to go back to school, but for a while I was just traveling and doing conferences and speaking about like my story and my message to those living with type 1 or just those who might be insecure about themselves.
Right.
But I finally have time to go back to school, so I just started this semester.
Okay.
And another problem was for a long time, I didn't know what I wanted to major in. I knew I loved math and I loved chemistry and I loved physics, and I was just like procrastinating picking one. And then I found out my best friend's mom is the associate dean of the engineering program here. And so I was like, engineering's like the perfect compilation of all three of those things. And then with some convincing from her mom, it sounded like a blast, and it is a blast so far.
That does not sound like a blast. It sounds like a lot of math and science to me, which I'm a comm major, so I do just about everything that I can to avoid math and science. What is it that inspired? I mean, is there a career that you're kind of looking forward to, or? So
I've always been like an entrepreneur at heart. So probably combining the two. I don't know. So I want to go into material sciences, which is like studying plastics and ceramics and metals and stuff. And so I'm also really interested in 3D printing and renewable energy. So I could either like create materials for 3D printers, or I could like make solar panels less expensive or something. So either one, and I'd like to start my own like tech startup instead of working for someone else.
So that it can be a little bit more affordable, and that there's just another area for people to achieve.
I love Boise, and I think it's a great place for like, we're kind of like big fishes in a little pond. Like if you go to like Portland or Seattle, like everything's been done before.
Right.
But in Boise, like there's so much room for growth, and so I'd love to bring another version of Micron to the area.
Oh, look at you go. Well, I mean, and it sounds like STEM as a program itself is something that women haven't really been a part of in the past. So are you doing anything to kind of promote that in like schools, or just, I mean, even through just the influence of you doing it, like just get out and do it?
For sure. I think one of the biggest, so first of all, another thing that inspired me to go into engineering is my boyfriend graduated in December, and I was watching everyone, and everything, I feel like a lot of the fields are even female dominated, but when it got to the engineering school, it was like 7 girls out of like 100 people, and it was just like boy after boy after boy, and I was like, that is not okay.
We need to take over.
I am going into engineering now, and it's not that like women need to like dominate the world or anything. It's just like diversity. If you want to have innovation, you need more diversity, and you need more minds, you need people of color, and you need women in that field bringing more ideas to the table. And I think it's one of the issues that I believe is holding women back is the lack of representation. So when we grow up, we see girls being teachers and nurses and what else? Like, I don't know, beauticians maybe. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But like, I didn't grow up seeing very many female scientists. So it's like obviously in your brain, you're not like, oh, women can't do that. But I think subconsciously something happens where you're like, it just like, I don't know, the idea never enters your brain. And so I hope that just by being an example myself, I can bring more girls in. And I've only been doing engineering for a couple months now, but I hope to get more involved and to somehow bring more women into STEM in the future, because I really think that could bring just increase innovation like tenfold or more.
Absolutely. Well, and like you were saying, girls have an incredible sense of like being able to create things, and if that's not represented, I mean, you just have to lead by example, really.
Absolutely. And we just have different life experiences. If you have like the same kind of persons thinking the same exact way, that has the same exact life experience that experiences the same problems, there's never going to be new ideas brought to the table. So if you have women or like people of different cultures all like coming together to create like new ideas, there's so much strength in it.
Recipe for success.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, the first time that a spotlight was really shown on you is when you were a representative of women and Idaho at Miss America. And you actually had a picture that went viral. And it was all over the internet. And you were voted People's Choice at Miss America. So what do you think it is about that picture and you know, what you were representing as a title holder that really got people to move it forward and to pass it along? What do you think it is that inspired people or how they could connect to it?
To start from the beginning, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 18. So like during my senior year of high school, and it was really difficult. And as an adolescent girl, I was also self-conscious and bombarded by these images of perfect, like tall, symmetrical, skinny, blonde girls on the front of magazines that I felt like I didn't look anything like. And in my subconsciously, I would go down the list of like, well, I don't have that, and I don't have that. And so that just must disqualify me from being beautiful. And when I got diabetes, it was just another thing on the list of things making me different, things my peers were bullying me for, etc. And one of the treatment options for when you have type 1 diabetes, you can either do injections, like shots, which are terrifying, or you can wear an insulin pump. And as an 18-year-old girl, I was like, heck no, I am not wearing a machine on my body.
So wait, you were 18?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think that's a common misconception about type 1 diabetes, is that you get it
when you're little.
Little, or when you're unhealthy, or like just diabetes in general. So you were 18 and living a healthy lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So type 1 diabetes has nothing to do with diet or exercise. And you can be diagnosed at the age of 2 or the age of 85. But yeah, definitely. People are like, but you weren't a kid or an adult. Like, how did you get diabetes?
How did you get diabetes?
So back to high school.
Right.
Really self-conscious, and I refused to get an insulin pump, which since then has really helped me manage my diabetes. And I finally heard about Nicole Johnson, who was Miss America in 1999. And I'm from Twin Falls, so the Miss Twin Falls director came up to me because her son went to my school, and she was like, I heard you had type 1 diabetes. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing. How did you hear that? I don't want to talk about it. But she said, I just wanted to tell you that Miss America, what would that have been? It would have been 13 years ago, had type 1, and she wears an insulin pump. And I was like, Miss America wears an insulin pump? That is so cool. So I Googled Nicole Johnson, and up comes this beautiful woman who has an insulin pump. And that's when it really hit me that I'd been being ridiculous my entire life, thinking that these little so-called flaws about me were disqualifying me from being beautiful. And so, and then also we see this like a lot in the media of like breaking, what is it called?
Stereotypes?
Breaking the beauty standards, unrealistic beauty standards. And so I was like, I'm gonna do that with my insulin pump and go to Miss America someday. But I was this little loser in high school who like no one thought I could do it. So I went and competed at Miss Twin Falls that year, and guess what happened?
You won.
No. No. Did not win. And the way it works, you need to, as you know, she's competing for Miss Boise on Saturday. So good luck, Brittany. But you compete at Miss Boise, and if you win that, you qualify to go to Miss Idaho. And if you win that, you qualify to go to Miss America. So my first step to get to Miss America was to win Miss Twin Falls, and I didn't do it.
Okay. So, but you persevered.
Yeah. So I went to another town, and I ended up winning that pageant because there's only like 4 girls in it total. So, and I got to Miss Idaho, and there were only 17 girls competing at Miss Idaho, which was like really low number. And then guess what happened?
You won.
No. No. Brittany already knows all this. I was in the bottom 7 when they called the top 11, so it was really embarrassing, and I kind of gave up.
Right. Well, I mean, it probably just made you feel also insecure all over again. Like, I didn't have what it took. I wasn't beautiful. Is that kind of how you felt?
You hear this all the time, like, you can do anything you put your mind to, like, blah, 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 but at the end of the day, there can only be one Miss Idaho. So it was really discouraging, and I thought about giving up, but at this point I had never worn my insulin pump on stage. I was waiting until I got to Miss America. So when I decided to kind of give up, I was like, you know what, I got into the pageants in the first place to wear my insulin pump on stage. I'm going to go back to Miss Idaho one more time and just wear it at the state level. And no one will know what it is. No one knows what diabetes is. Like, it probably won't inspire anyone because no one with diabetes is going to be in the audience anyways. But I started pageants for this reason, so I'm going to fulfill that goal just on a smaller level. So I go back and I do win Miss Twin Falls that year.
Okay, here we go.
And
underdog. Everyone loves a good underdog.
So I come back to Miss Idaho. And I'm in the dressing room, and we had to wear jeans that year, remember? You competed that year. So I took my insulin pump and clipped it to the front of my pants pocket, and it just looked like 30 times bigger than it normally did. Kind of like when you wake up with a zit on your forehead before a presentation at school or something. So I started panicking, and I was just like, this was the worst idea you have ever had. Why? And you've worked 3 years, so you can't just take the insulin pump off now. So I get up the courage, I tell myself no one is going to notice it, no one's going to notice it. And I walk out of the dressing room, and there's a little girl backstage, and before the curtains even opened, she came over to me and she's like, oh my gosh, what is that? Pointing to my pump, and my heart just sank. It was like if someone was like, by the way, you have a big volcano zit on your forehead. I was like, oh my gosh, someone just pointed it out. So I run back into the dressing room, and I'm totally devastated at this point. I'm ripping off my pump and stuffing it into my bag. And the little girl follows me in there, and I was so furious because I just didn't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me.
So she's like, wait, is that an insulin pump? I have type 1 diabetes, and my mom said someone who was competing for Miss Idaho had it as well. And I was like, oh my gosh, that changes everything, because up until this point, I didn't think anyone in the audience would know what an insulin pump was, and there was at least one person I knew.
Or that you could have the effect that you wanted to, which is probably I'm going to do this, and it's not going to make a difference. What am I even doing?
So that's what came next. So I put my insulin pump back on, and we started talking about diabetes and bonding over that. And finally, I was like, do you have a T-Slim, which is the kind of insulin pump I wear? There's several different kinds. I wanted to know if she wore the same kind. She got really shy, and she's like, oh no, I'm just in 6th grade. I don't want to wear an insulin pump.
A machine connected to your body for
I don't know what my peers would say. And I was sad that she felt that way, but on the inside I was like, yes, she feels exactly like I did before I heard about Nicole Johnson. And all I wanted to do in the Miss America organization is be Nicole Johnson for someone, even if it's just one person. So I was stoked. So I went out. I didn't care about the judges. I didn't care about the audience. All I cared about was this little girl sitting in the front row. And this was the first night, so we don't know any results yet, but she came up to me and she was jumping up and down excited. And I was like, I couldn't understand what she was saying. She was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get an insulin pump. We're gonna go to the doctor on Monday and start the process to get an insulin pump. And
oh my gosh.
Like, that worked way faster and way better than I ever could have imagined. So her mom came up to me and was in tears. And this was probably the most important moment of my whole Miss Idaho experience, even though I wasn't Miss Idaho yet. But she explained that she never thought she was going to convince her daughter to get an insulin pump, let alone be jumping up and down excited and confident about getting one. And that kind of became a theme over my experience. So the next day they read off the top 11, and I made it into the top 11. So did you. And then I made it into the top 5, and then they read off the 4th runner-up, 3rd runner-up, 2nd runner-up, 1st runner-up, and finally they called my name and said that I was the next Miss Idaho, or Miss Idaho 2014. And it was such a whirlwind after that. But like you said, I posted a picture of my insulin pump in my swimsuit during the Miss Idaho competition, and it went totally viral. And I started the hashtag #ShowMeYourPump, which evolved into a bigger thing, which of kids just showing all of their different medical devices or insecurities on all different forms of social media, and there's thousands and thousands of pictures now linked to the hashtag. So it was really exciting. And as you mentioned, I got to go out to NYC to be on Dr. Oz and be interviewed about it and talk a little bit about diabetes.
So are there health benefits to having an insulin pump? Or?
Yeah, it's different for everyone, but it's really complicated without getting into the details of diabetes, but it definitely can help you control a little more than injections do, in my experience. And then again, that's different for everyone, but it's in general, yes.
Okay, because I was just wondering, if there I mean, because I know that you can monitor exactly like how much insulin or like what your blood sugar's at, and then you also don't have to prick your fingers as much. And I've donated blood a couple of times, and I know that pricking your fingers isn't something that I want to do all the time. More painful than shots,
for sure. Yeah. But so that's a separate machine, and it's called a Dexcom, or continuous glucose monitor. Okay. And there's like a little chip in like my back basically that measures my blood sugar and sends it to my iPhone. So I can just get on my phone, and there's an app that like shows a graph of what my blood sugars are doing and where they're going, which is a huge diabetes innovation. So those two technologies combined like are amazing.
Perfect.
But so since Miss America, as you said, I won People's Choice, which is voted on through social media, and I was the second Miss Idaho in history to make the top 15 at Miss America, which was so amazing.
And you wore your insulin pump on stage too. Did you get any feedback from that, or
like good feedback?
Yeah.
Yes. So that was my dream come true. So you only get to be on TV if you make it into the top 15. And I was a little discouraged because I was like, Idaho never does.
Idaho never does. For those of you watching, Idaho never does.
Winning People's Choice was just like huge because it meant that I got to wear my insulin pump on TV in front of millions of people, and that's all I could ask for. And then since then I go to speak at diabetes conferences across the country every weekend. And that's pretty much my full-time job now, and it's a blast.
That does sound fun. Well, and you went on Dr. Oz too, but then you went on to write a book. So what is it in your book that you really didn't cover over your influence as Miss Idaho and on Dr. Oz? Like fill in the gaps for me. We have her little book right here too that we'll show you. It's called Sugar Linings, and it's by yours truly.
So it's called Sugar Linings, Finding the Bright Side of Type 1 Diabetes. And so I talk about all of what I just talked about with a little more detail, obviously. But then I also talk about the good things, or finding the bright side in bad situations, specifically type 1 diabetes. And so let me refresh my brain real quick. So I talk about how difficult situations can make us stronger people. And a lot of times when I'm talking to little kids who are 5 or like younger than being able to talk, like they have to stick themselves with needles all day, every day. And I'm like, if you can do that, you can do anything. Like, do you know how terrified your peers are of shots? Like, that's crazy.
I'm afraid of shots.
Yeah. So. And then just like the emotional, I don't know, everyone has been through something difficult, and you know how it can make you a stronger person, because if you can get through that, you're better equipped to get through difficult things in the future. And I also have a chapter called Diabesties. So I've definitely made amazing friendships that I wouldn't have without diabetes. And there is like a special bond you have with someone, because you can either talk about diabetes and vent about diabetes, or more importantly, whenever I go to a meal and I have to bring out my pump or I have to test my blood sugar, there's always questions like, can you eat that? Or like, what is that? Oh, you have diabetes. Like, what is that? You don't look like you have diabetes. And I have to answer those questions every time I have a meal. But when I'm with my friends who have diabetes, we're all checking our blood sugar, we're all taking our shots, and they understand what I'm going through on a deeper level than anyone else does. So friendships with those who are going through similar situations that you are awesome. I also talk about, let's see. It's given me, like, it's helped me find my passion. So, and I think that's true for a lot of difficult things that you go through. Whenever, like, I also have my internship at the refugee center, and it's interesting to hear, like, a lot of the employees are themselves refugees, or whenever you're going through something difficult, it often inspires you to help others who are going through similar situations. And I've definitely found that in diabetes. And then finally, it also gives us and increases our ability to show empathy towards others. So I have diabetes and you have some other challenge that I might not fully understand, but I do know what it's like to get painful questions or ignorant questions, or just feel different. And so I can use that to try to relate to whatever you might be experiencing.
Right. Okay.
And I think that's really important for everyone. Whatever hard thing they're going through, learn to take that and relate it to other people and what they're going through.
Absolutely. So this book really then, from what I'm hearing, it relates more than just to people with type 1 diabetes. Anyone could read this and get things from it. So it doesn't have to just be if you're diabetic, but you're also starting a business that you have just recently started. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So,
oh my gosh.
I thought of this
go.
fun idea for a shirt. And it says, let's see, it says, Die Badass. And it's a dictionary definition: one who never stops fighting the never-ending battle against diabetes, one who is brave, has determination, and perseveres through the literal highs and lows of life, and is also one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. And then the last definition is me. And so I like paid for 40 of them to get printed, and I put them on my website, and they sold out in like 13 hours. So we are printing more. We're also getting our own machine so we can print our different t-shirts. I'm hiring graphic designers to develop more designs. And this is more of like a girl shirt. It's really flowy and cute. So there's been requests for like little boy shirts and man shirts and like little girl shirts and shirts kids can wear to school because they don't say diabetes on them.
Explicit. You just like need to have one of those little fuzzy things like walking around with you over the word.
So but it's super exciting and it's growing way too fast for me to keep up with, which is a problem, but kind of a good problem to have. So
better than the opposite problem, I have to say. A little bit better than otherwise. But so there's people that are struggling with diabetes, and you also kind of touched on that there's people struggling with a lot of other things. How do you think? There's a new doll that's come out that has an insulin pump on it, and it's the American Girl doll. Do you think that having that kind of a new interpretation of like what beauty is in actual like physical concrete form, and also like the new Barbie doll that's come out, like how do you think that's going to shape everything and like who we are as a society?
I hope, with increased representation, whether it's someone wearing an insulin pump in the Miss America pageant or there being more curvy Barbie dolls, I hope that like our children can grow up with a more healthy idea of what it means to be beautiful than we did, because I think I don't know, we still might have problems, but and progress is slow, but I think if there is a more healthy and diverse idea of what it means to be beautiful, girls will grow up with a lot less self-esteem issues, and I wouldn't have had the issue of wearing an insulin pump in the future, because they really are silly things to be self-conscious about. But as you said, American Girl just released an insulin pump kit for their dolls, and it's something the type 1 diabetes community has been fighting for so long, like since before I was diagnosed. It's a super exciting breakthrough. And I think we talked about this before we went on the air, but there has been some negative feedback as well. Because diabetes is kind of has a negative connotation to it, because you often think of people who are overweight and don't exercise. And first of all, there are two different kinds of type 1 two kinds of diabetes. There's type 1 and type 2. And the type I have, and the type of the people I work with have is type 1. So it's an autoimmune disease, and they don't know what causes it. They do know that there's no correlation to diet or exercise, because you can get it like when you're a week old, or you can get it when you're 85 or 18. So people have been, what would you say, criticizing the American Girl doll company because they think we're encouraging kids to eat unhealthy or not exercise, and that's absolutely not it at all.
Yeah, you do the opposite. You are very fit and you eat very well, from what I can remember. There's tons of kids, like little girls who are 6 years old, that I've heard stories of, that they go to school and get bullied because their peers think they ate too much candy, and it's just so sad that we have this amazing positive encouragement to show these girls that it's okay to wear this medical machine because it's helping you and it's saving your life, and you didn't do anything to cause your diabetes. And then on the other hand, there's these like ignorant, mean people saying, how dare you, like American Girl, and they're just not educated. So hope we can spread more awareness. And even with type 2, obviously it's definitely more of a factor to eat healthy and exercise well, but that can also be caused by genetics and so many other factors that you can't just like narrow it down to you have diabetes, you ate too many donuts. End of story, no matter what type of diabetes it is. Well, and no matter what you have too, what I'm hearing you say is no matter what hardship you have, no matter what you're going through, overcome it and like keep pursuing the things that you're really passionate about. Do you have any other advice for people that that have, you know, struggles that they want to overcome, or how did you have like great support system? Give me some tips on how you were able to manage all of the things that you're doing, and also how you were able to overcome, because I really admire that part about you, that you were able to overcome this obstacle.
Yeah, so I think first of all, my message that I like travel the country and speak about is when you have things that you might feel self-conscious about, I really encourage you to learn how to not only like accept them or tolerate them, but also learn to love and embrace them, because loving yourself is so empowering. And then second of all, whatever obstacle you might face in your life, learn how to turn it into a sugar lining and use it to change other people's lives. And then with balancing my time, let's see, I sound really busy because I'm speaking at conferences, I'm on planes all the time, I'm also in school full time. I wrote a book, I'm running my business, I'm interning at the refugee center. I don't know what else I'm doing, but
you're here at Be Limitless.
Yeah, I'm at Be Limitless.
Cool.
But I think the most important thing is to balance your time, and I can honestly say I'm almost never stressed out, except maybe when I have a chemistry exam. But it's just, you have to learn how to say no to the things that aren't a priority in your life, and if you can do that and just focus on what's important, keep the stress out. And that's, just learn how to do it in a healthy way, and you can do a lot as long as you balance and make sure you take time for yourself and get plenty of sleep. I need sleep or I do not function.
Well, and it kind of sounds like you also have a great support system with the friends that have diabetes as well, and your family. So maybe for people to be able to reach out to other people, and there's probably like Facebook groups, or where have you found?
I think the biggest thing is my family. I'm so privileged, and like, I don't know, so lucky to have an amazing family that has been able to provide me with resources, which unfortunately some people don't have access to that. But hopefully you can reach out to other peers, or maybe when you're facing whatever challenge you're going through, reach out to other people who are going through the same thing. They can help you and you can help them, and
then we can make the world a better place.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's about all we had for today, Sierra. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for giving us some awesome advice. And at home, to you at home, remember that one day you're going to look back on your life. Make today the day that you look back on and say, that's where it all began. Thank you for tuning in. That was Be Limitless, and have a good day.